Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fatherhood Unscripted. This is DJ and Alec, and we have a special guest today, Jason with Kin Homestead. We can find you guys on YouTube and TikTok. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And you guys have a podcast as well.
We do. It's called the Stead Talks podcast. It's right now just on our RSS feed and Spotify.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's kind of how we are too. I mean, when we first started out the podcast, we just had it. We were just Spotify, but now we're kind of expanding to everything, and we're making it like more into a YouTube, like a video podcast, so we can get it on YouTube. Because I feel like we grow a little bit faster on YouTube than we do just on Spotify, because it's with search engine stuff and all that fun stuff.
Oh yeah.
Well, how's everyone's week been? 4th of July, busy week.
Crazy busy. Way busier than I've ever wanted it to be.
And so, your dad, you're homesteader, you're off grid. You're not off the grid, or you are off the grid, but you're not off the grid hiding. I watched that video.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to set up a homestead for long-term use, that's going to take care of your family and your needs. The reality is you can't be running from the law. So, we use the other definition of off grid. No utilities come into our property.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people out there like, oh, I want to live off, in a van, or I want to go live in the woods nowadays. It's such becoming a bigger, huge lifestyle now, because I mean, it's so expensive to live in an apartment or whatever nowadays. You can just go do your own thing and have fun.
Yeah, I used to think when our channel really started growing, I used to think it was because of my talent or because of my wife's ability to video me well. But really, I think it's just that people are fed up, and I'm showing them a way that they can do it for a lot cheaper. And so, it was a humbling experience.
I'll tell you what. I mean, I think your videos are funny. I like the way
Oh,
you guys shoot them. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. We have a lot of fun with it. We've been doing it for a long time, but it wasn't until about a year ago that we started taking it seriously and stopped kind of showing people what this lifestyle was like and started showing them how to accomplish it themselves. And that's it. Just after 10 years of making videos, we were an overnight success. So
Awesome.
And that's how it worked.
Well, I think going into this, what being a dad and being on homestead, how's that life been? Just having your kids out there in the woods.
Well, for in my opinion, this sort of lifestyle kind of puts kids into their natural habitat. Kids want to roll around in the dirt and climb trees and jump off rocks and all of that stuff just kind of naturally. I think when they're not wanting to do that, it's because we've added something to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest benefit that I've seen out here. Now they still have their devices and the internet, and as a dad, I find myself shaking my fist at the internet and being like, go outside. But I recently worked out my electrical system, so I have an app that I can just turn all of the internet and everything off, and it can only be turned back on from my phone. So I think I've got a solution to that now. So, but all jokes aside, when we initially moved out here, we only had two kids. We had our 2.5-year-old and a 6-month-old. And so they basically grew up out here. So this is just what they knew. But a couple of years back, I ended up taking a job back in the city. After the twins were born, we had some medical bills and things that needed to be taken care of that I couldn't barter my way through. So I took this job back in the city, and it was amazing to me to just watch the kids. One, I wasn't around as much because I was working 60 hours a week. And when I would come home, every day they kind of became progressively more, I guess the only way to describe it would be gray, like they were turning visibly a different color, right? And that's when they really started getting into being on their devices and and all of that stuff. That time period happened to be through the lockdowns of the pandemic. Um, Literally the day that our state shut down, we had a U-Haul truck driving to the city, you know. And so for that 2 year period that everything was just ridiculous,
Mm-hmm.
um, it really did a number on them. But then when we moved back out here, it was just like they came to life, and it was an amazing thing to experience. And that's when I gained certainty that we were putting them in the right environment for us and for our kids. You know, I understand people's situations are different, um, but yeah, it's a pretty amazing life. And then as a dad, I get to show them all kinds of stuff. I introduced my oldest daughter to the power of the SDS Max. You know what that is? It's a big old drill with an attachment for jackhammering, and we broke rocks together and dug trenches, and we're building a tiny house for her, um, so that no matter what happens in the future, she'll always have some place to go back to, you know. And
That's awesome.
so being able to do that kind of stuff has been really amazing. Now, there are downsides to it, like, you know, the kids have chores, and when they don't do chores, mom will ask 2 or 3 times, and when it gets to a certain point, she's got to be able to have that that ace in the hole of, when I tell your dad, that has to carry a wallop, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that can kind of make me the bad guy sometimes, but is what it is.
That's our role, right? We have to be
Yeah.
that final barrier.
Yeah, right. We have to be able to push just a little bit harder than all of their kid stuff can push back on you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be hard. That can be really hard.
For
I just
sure.
want to go
No,
outside
I
and break rocks with the kids, you know.
yeah, I hear you. Uh,
Yeah.
no, it's cool to have the perspective that you've had, where you have them in both scenarios and
Right.
seeing like life be sucked out of them. Because we just had Simon on our last episode, and he was talking about how when we as we grow older, we lose that luster of having fun, right? We just don't have fun anymore. And at
Yeah.
some point, it's told that you shouldn't have fun, you shouldn't explore, you shouldn't go out and like experience things. And to your point, you did like a little social experiment unintentionally,
Yeah.
because you had to take care of things, but it showed you exactly that. Like when you take those things out, like that's just how we're designed. Like that's just how we're built. Like that we should go out and explore and have fun. And when
Yeah.
we're stuck to a device or we're not exploring, we're not doing those things, it literally sucks the life out of us. And
Hmm.
that's why you see people just go about their day. Some people will tell you, I don't even know how I got home from work today. Like I can't tell you the drive. Like I just was
Yeah,
on
you
an
enter a
autopilot.
time warp, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's cool. Just the experience that you've had, just to see that and experience it firsthand. It's a good perspective, honestly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely something that took some. I don't know. I had to take my own blinders off at some point when we were back in the city, and really look and go like, wait a second, is this the best thing? Because we were making good money and we lived in a nice house and we had all of the things and all of that stuff. I was, you know, experiencing how the other half lives, we like to say. Um, and I really had to like strip away all of the things that I was justifying all of this through. And in doing so, I don't know, even that was an adventure. I don't think I would have been able to do that had I not had the 8 years prior experience of making all the mistakes on the homestead and everything else. Like, I didn't really have the gift of self reflection prior to that, so it was a hard won perspective. But I'm glad that we did it. We have certainty, whereas we didn't really have certainty before.
Hmm. And I think
Yeah.
it's funny, like you talk about, putting your children in their natural habitat. So we're big campers.
Yeah.
And my son, we've been getting ready to go camping this summer. My son's all, I'm ready to go back to my natural habitat because when we go camping, shirt off, he's building spears, just out doing
Nice.
crazy kid stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like once you get them outside, they just go nuts and they have so much fun versus just sitting at home all day, which I'm guilty of, letting my kids have too much screen time. You know, that's just how it
Yeah.
is nowadays.
I think
But
that's the
letting them go
world,
outside,
you know.
yeah.
Mm. Yeah, no, I agree completely. The like when I see the kids, we went to the lake yesterday, you know, and they had fireworks and all of that kind of stuff, and they put on a pretty big fireworks display. But you know, my kids are out there with little glow sticks around their necks on their floaties. Out, it's dark, and the fireworks are going off, and all of this other stuff. And I'm like, they wouldn't have had that specific experience had they not had the freedom um, to just, you know, we knew where they were. We were sitting up on a hill. We could see them from half a mile away because they've got glow sticks around their neck. But and you know, we're very on top of them, but not helicopter parenting, you know. And and so I think it just teaches them that there's more to life than all of that other stuff. You know, there's experiences to be had that you don't have to watch someone else have. And I don't know. I think that's a good thing.
100%. Yeah, you got to let them experience life, and rather than just what's in front of them on the screen. Because at the end of the day, I mean, what's on the screen is not real. You know.
Right. Yeah, and as a content creator, I I try to do something about that with our videos. I don't know if it comes through to the viewer, but you know, I share a lot of our mistakes and all of the things that we do wrong and how it almost led to tragedy, and this is how we got out of it, but it took me 5 tries. You know, um, we try and do that, but we also do that with our kids. You know, and we let them experience things, make the mistakes, and I don't know. To me, it seems to be working. I really like my kids. You know, I love them obviously, but sometimes you know you can be in a situation where you're like, I don't really like you.
Yeah.
Right now today, I really like our kids. They're I think they're going to grow up to be really good humans, and so we'll see. It's an experiment that you don't get to see the result of until way down the line. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know you've been busy as of late, but like just living the way you guys are living, you can slow things down. And I think
Mhm.
when we live in a just in general, any city you live in or whatever, it's so fast paced. Like I was just driving with my wife the other day and I was saying like I don't know if I want to live in a big city anymore because like I'm scared to get on the road. There's people doing 60 mile an hour in a 35-mile-an-hour zone. I'm like I just like I don't feel safe like to get over or like it's just crazy how fast paced. Like we're trying to get somewhere in a hurry, whether that be home or to work because we're running late. And I think that we put that on our kids too. We don't let them basically like take over the day for themselves. And it's like,
Right.
come on, you need to get ready. I gotta go. Like I'm gonna be late for work if I don't get you to daycare on time. But we gotta go. We gotta go. And
Hmm.
that teaches them that you have to be in this mode of just go, 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 and you can't take time to just live and experience life. So I think, with you guys living the way you do, it really like you can people say, oh, I don't really like my kid in the moment or whatever. And usually it's because of just our own expectations or because we have to go somewhere quick that like we're not liking that they're not listening right away or that
Right.
they want to do it a certain way. And so like that's my wife and I too. Like we try to balance it. We give them the freedom to go into the room and get dressed however they want to get dressed. Does it look the best? To them, yes. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't quote unquote match, but
Yeah.
like my son wants to wear living in Vegas, it's 115 degrees outside. He wants to wear a long sleeve shirt. We're like, well, as long as you're wearing shorts, buddy, fine, go ahead. But it's
Yeah.
like, just letting them kind of like, just let them walk the way they want to walk in a whatever path you're going, and just letting them explore and letting them have that freedom. I think is really how you develop that relationship with them. Not only that, but it gives them the independence to
Mm-hmm.
think for
Yeah.
themselves.
I agree, and I wouldn't naturally. That's it wouldn't be naturally how I would operate as a father. Um, and I'm really lucky that I have Carrie, because she's like, she can calm me down, or she can like turn off the dad needs to pack a wallop, meter significantly. So I'm really lucky on that. I get very like single minded, and I'm trying to accomplish something, and everyone is going to get caught up in the tsunami that I'm pulling along with me. And so I'm really lucky that I have her to kind of like, you know, get the kids and put them on the life raft and move them over there, and let me go about my thing. Um, she's an amazing partner too, you know, when it comes to that kind of stuff. Um, and so we wear different hats in that way. She can really help to create just what you're talking about, where they have their own experiences. And like, I'm a Papa Bear dad. I live in the woods, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, no, I need you near me so that I can protect you from whatever might be out there. And mom's like, oh, go on a hike, there's no bears out there, go out there. And they'll just hike off into the woods, and we know generally where they're going. And I have a drone that if we ever lose them, I can just fly the drone out, find where they are, drop a pin, and then go get them. um, and so I don't know. I think it takes both things. It takes the structure and the discipline, but at the same time, you know, I'm I don't think they'd be half as cool as they are if it wasn't for the influence of their mom. So
Well, it's something like as parents, like letting them have that freedom to go do something, like go on a hike by themselves, um,
yeah,
that kind of thing. You have to let them grow, and that's the hardest part as a dad, right? Like letting that happen
yeah.
sometimes. Yeah.
You want them to be that little kid that
Hmm.
is fascinated by everything that you're doing. And I'll tell you, I don't know how old are your kids.
I have oh gosh, Micah just turned 8, and Mia is going to be 8 and 6 for me.
Oh, it's such a fantastic age. 8 and 6. Okay.
And then for me, my son is about to be 4, and then our twins are about to be 2. So
Okay. Also
yeah,
fantastic age. Yeah. So yeah, there does come a point where they go like, well, I want to go to my friend's house, or I don't really want to watch that thing with you that we've watched ever since I was 5, or and that can be heartbreaking. But yeah, I don't know why I went off onto that tangent. Something that you said made me think of that, but then I cut you off. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. We were just talking about like just as they're growing up, letting them experience that freedom is like one of the hardest things we can do as dads.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's what it was. Now I remember.
And I
Yeah,
get that. Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing to watch, though. It's a beautiful thing to watch them turn into the humans that you've helped develop them into. And
Hmm.
so
for sure. Yeah, I know when like we've done a really good job, more so my wife, with just like my son and emotional regulation and just like big emotions happening. He knows how to do belly breathing and just takes a moment to calm himself down. And it's those moments you're like, wow, I'm really proud of you, buddy. Like
hmm
you just did what most adults don't even do. Like you calmed
right.
yourself down in that moment and you were able to think clearly. Still within the emotions, right? I'm not telling them to push down the emotions. It's what I
Yeah.
was taught as a kid. You just show down the emotions. So I'm not trying to teach them that, but it's like you sat in with your emotions and you didn't let it take over the situation that you were in. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, like you said, you just have those moments where you're like, wow, I'm really, you're growing up. I don't want it, but I'm really proud of you. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
nothing. I don't think anything has the ability to bring a tear to my eye faster than watching something like that. With my kids. And then I'll always look over at my wife and be like, I'm so happy that they took after you in that way.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's something me and my wife do is we'll go back because on Google Photos, if you guys didn't know, if you just sync it to your photos, it'll just save everything from forever. So we have
Hmm.
pictures on there from when they're little and videos. We're going back and every 4th of July, I take a picture of them, and because we get them in their 4th of July outfits, and we usually go to the same parade for like the last 5 years. And so we'll take a picture of them. So just watching that picture of them getting bigger and bigger and bigger, teeth missing, and this happening, it's just it's fun to watch that happen.
Hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Oh, sorry, my computer freaked out. So going with like talking about being off grid and stuff like that, I watched one of your videos the other day where you're talking about security and
Hmm.
going into that dad mode of having people coming on your property and just going all out, flailing your arms.
The
Um,
orangutan.
they recommend, yeah. I feel like that's our core response. Like if our family is in danger, like we gotta take care of them.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I really try to regulate my responses to environmental stimuli. Like it's something that I really work hard on, and I'm terrible at it because I'm not used to. I don't know. I don't have a lot of practice with it living the way that we do. And even yesterday when we went out, there was a group of folks that had set up their camp at the lake that we go to. There's a very small access to the lake, and then it's like cliffs all around. And these people set up their whole camp blocking the entirety of this beach. And so even with, because my mother-in-law lives out here as well, I get, first my kids come back and start talking about how those people said this and that and the other thing and all this other stuff. And then my mother-in-law went to go get in the lake, and she starts to walk kind of around their camp, and this guy like jumps out in front of her and does this whole thing, you got to go that way. And I'm like immediately up, and I'm a big dude, I'm 6'3", 250 pounds, and all of a sudden I find myself in this situation where this 5'9" guy who was thinking he was dealing with a 65-year-old lady is all of a sudden like right here, and then 6 or 8 of his friends come, and it's like, no, you mess with my family like that.
Mm.
I don't care how many of you there are, there's, you messed with my family. And so I have a really hard time not just immediately going into defensive mode, you know. Um, but I think that is how we're hardwired as fathers to just be, I'm the protector, and you know the family is always the hill that I'm willing to die on, you know. And so yeah, I didn't feel real good about it afterwards because I was like, there's the part of it that's like, gosh, what if somebody got that on camera? But there's also the part of it like, I know what my size and everything can do as far as intimidating another. I didn't try to mess up somebody else's day, um, but I am afraid that that is actually what happened. So it's a good thing in a survival situation, but it's also not such a good thing when you're not in a life or death like battle for survival, you know. Um, which I don't know. I think I have a very interesting um, perspective on that, because I've had to jump out in front of wild dogs and predator type animals and coyotes, and I had to run down to that same lake in the middle of the night to get one of my friend's teenage kids, and I could hear the bears
Oh
flipping
gosh.
trash cans over and everything else, so it's like, yeah, there is that reflex, but that guy wasn't really a threat. And so and he got about the same response, so it's difficult to regulate that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Is you reminded me of a fun story. So pre I can't talk. Wow, pre kids,
Mm-hmm.
myself. So me and DJ, our wives are sisters, and we all
Mm-hmm.
grew up together. And so pre kids, we went camping for my birthday. Oh gosh, I don't remember what birthday it was, but it was a long time ago. And we were out at the lake in Las Vegas, just out in the night. And so they had gone to bed. They had their dog, and we had our dog. And so me and my wife are sitting around the fire, and it's dark out. It's quiet now, and we're sitting there just chatting. And then something goes to the dark, like four-legged animal just out in the woods. We're like, oh no, what the heck is this? Like, we're not
Hmm.
prepared for this. So she grabs our dog, jumps in the car, and I grab two folding chairs. Like, I'm ready to, like, all right, let's go. I'm going to protect these people.
Yeah.
And their dog comes running out of the woods. But in that moment, like, you don't know. You're just ready to. You're ready to, like, I'm going to fight for my family. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've been in a similar situation to the one you're describing. I hear this bump up against our house in the middle of the night, and it's Carrie's gone. She went to a friend's house to go to like a wedding or something like that. And so I've got the three little kids because the older two kids went with her. I hear this bump up against the house, and I'm like, and so I go outside, and it's pitch black, no moon, no nothing, and I see these eyes off in the distance, and you know how eyes at night glow; they kind
Mhm.
of have like this green glowing color. And I'm like, all right, I'm ready, whatever this thing is. And then all of a sudden it starts charging at me. And it's fast too. And as soon as it gets, I don't know, maybe like 10 feet away from me or whatever, I kind of catch a glimpse of what it is. And it was a miniature pony that had escaped from a farm down the road. And so I'm like, all right, I know you're a wolf or something. It was this little mini pony, and he was just running up to say hi. So yeah, it's kind of funny how that works.
He's like, I'm
It's
ready to
dad
destroy
mode.
this
That's
animal.
dad. Yeah, that's dad mode engaged.
Yep.
You know.
That's funny. It's fun to have stories like that, and you can go back like, oh yeah, remember that time I protected you? Yeah, you didn't
Yeah,
even say thank you.
yeah. I didn't
Yep.
just bring you into this world. I've kept you in this world. It's funny.
Mhm.
Carrie and I always joke about how being a parent is the only job that you could ever have that you have to have a 100% success rate at keeping the thing alive. I'm responsible for keeping you alive 100% of the time, and also whatever you effects you create as we're trying to keep you from, you know, accidentally falling off a cliff.
Mhm.
It's 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 a really interesting job. you know
It's one of the greatest jobs in the world. You know.
oh, it is. there's
Yeah.
there's nothing like it. And I find it interesting that we're at a point where we're starting to see the population decline,
Mhm.
and not not necessarily decline yet, but age, and people aren't having as many kids. And yeah, I understand there's economical reason, or there's economy reasons, there's um, worldview reasons and all that other stuff. But man, the the experiences that you will miss out on by not being a parent is
Yep.
uh, that's kind of the tragic part of it. There's nothing like it.
No, and
Definitely.
I think sometimes too, like speaking to even another point of view, like it, they're scared that they'll give their children the same experience that their parents gave them,
Right.
and you may not have, because I just feel like we evolve as humans, right? We learn from things. Maybe there's times we don't learn and we just repeat things,
Oh yeah.
but I just feel like you know, like for me, I just I just knew that I was going to create a different environment than I grew up in. Not to say everything was bad, but the bad stuff I just took and I was like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And how can I make that different? I think people are just scared that they're going to repeat the same thing and they felt unsafe in their environment. So they don't want to make a little kid feel unsafe. And so that fear also holds people back from wanting to be parents, or they tell themselves they don't want to be parents, but in all reality, it's just because there's that hesitation of repeating, and then, like you said, too, other factors like we really don't feel safe in this world on a big scale, and we have more. Obviously, too, we're connected to the news more, and so you hear about a lot of bad stuff, and so you're like, I don't want to bring a kid into this world. But
Yeah. Yeah. And also, it is expensive. It's an expensive time to live. And so
yeah,
I think all of these different factors, But I can tell you, as a person who never wanted to have kids, my dad passed away when I was 10. And so I have two younger brothers who are 8 and 9 years younger than me. And I basically had to bring them up. My mom worked 3 jobs. We hardly ever saw her. And I was like, from age 10 to 18, I got my fill of parenting. So as a person who thought that and then ended up having 5 children, um, I can tell you that having all of those considerations about why you shouldn't, and especially like what you were talking about, I really didn't have. I had a very bad experience with my upbringing. I won't get too much into that, but um, and that did play a role in me not wanting to have kids because I didn't know if I'd be able to do any better, and there was all these
Mhm.
considerations that I'd come up with and all that stuff. And but looking back, having had all those considerations and growing up poor and all of that stuff, um, I think all of my favorite memories, like every single one of them, in fact, um, comes specifically from being a dad, you know? So, if those are your considerations and somebody's watching that's wondering whether or not they should pursue the dad lifestyle, I could tell you there's nothing like it. And my life is an
Mhm.
adventure, you know, and it wouldn't be half as cool if it wasn't shared with the kids, it just wouldn't.
Mhm.
100%. Yeah. Like they drive you nuts on one hand, but at the same time, sometimes they blow your mind with things, you know?
Yeah. I love, what I love the most is the conversations, is when they realize something for themselves and then they make the case to you like you don't, like you've never considered it. And then when they come across something that they actually did think of and is an original thought and you have never considered, and it changes your
Mhm.
life or it changes your perspective on something. I mean, that is like, I'm difficult to change the mind of. You can ask Carrie; she'll tell you. If I think something, um, I'm going to think it, and I'm going to need real concrete evidence to change my mind about it. And so many times, my kids have been like, I was thinking about such and such, and blah 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 blah. And and I'll just be like, I never considered that. I'm going to think about that and have some reflection time based on something that a 6-year-old told me, and that's how I know there's real power in the child father, or child parent relationship. It's like unbelievable because I could have an expert in a field tell me all about why I'm wrong about something and it not have any effect on me at all. And then uh, one of my kids will be like, I was thinking about this thing. And I'll be like, I never considered that, and so, yeah, it's a beautiful
I think
thing.
my son's
It,
starting to get to that part in life.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
We had
cool,
a
right?
discussion the other night. We were coming home from a friend's house. It's really cool. Yeah. And he's like, hey, Dad, so my wife had my daughter and he was with me. So he's driving the front seat. Now he's big enough now to ride in the front seat of the car. And
Hmm.
so he's sitting there like, hey, Dad, what's your favorite band? I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, I kind of just go with what I like at the moment. He's like, I think my favorite band is 21 Pilots, and I really like this song. He's like naming songs. He's like, I really like the way they do this in the song. I'm like, the heck, who the heck are you? Like, what are you talking about right now? You've never said
Hmm.
anything like this. But yeah, it's kind of cool to see that as they're growing up and
Yeah,
just making their own thought processes.
yeah. Yeah, we went to the movies for my wife's birthday is on the 2nd, and then our middle child is on the 4th, right? So, and believe me, she is like the quintessential Independence Day baby. But we went to the movies and we watched uh, Inside Out 2, I think it
Mhm.
is. And it's all about like the as the kids growing up and all of the core memories they're making, and then the little th- you know the sadness emotion that's inside of her,
Mhm.
and joy and all that kind of stuff, and just watching the kids watch it and the realizations that I could see them having, you know that haven't like, you know, percolated into full thoughts just yet, but I could see them having like, oh, maybe that's why I I don't know, that whole self-reflection thing that kids start doing at like 6, 7 years old. Don't get me wrong, half of the things that they say they're just practicing making noises with their mouth. But you know, it's
Hmm.
sometimes it's just like, wow, you are so insightful. And they don't have all that jaded, I've been in a workaday world for the last 20 years of my life, um, clouding that perception. It's really interesting. It's really, really interesting. I just got to say, if you're on the fence about whether or
Yeah.
not to have kids and you're a dad, out there to anybody who's listening, um, it's the best thing. It's the best thing you could possibly do. It's heartbreaking at some points, but it is the best thing that you can do.
Yep. No, I'm with you. Yeah, it's all reservations, considerations, everything aside. Like it definitely will change your life for the better, uh,
Hmm.
especially if you are committed to being a dad who's present. Not like you see them every once in a while and you're not really a part of their life. Then maybe we can make an argument that it won't change your life really.
Yeah.
But if you commit to being there for them, it will no doubt, in my mind, period, it will change your life.
Yeah.
Um, and it is crazy. Like some of the questions they come up with too. Like my son and my wife were having a conversation, and he asked my wife, "Why do pirates go R?" And she's like, "I don't know. I never asked myself that." That's a great question. I don't know. It's one of those things like makes you like, huh, maybe I should have asked this question already. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, buddy. Yeah. So it's cool. Like, they get you to think. They're like, they ask these random questions, one off like, well, 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 maybe I should know by now, but I don't. So
Yeah.
here we are learning together. So that's cool too. Just getting to have those experiences together where you're learning. We go to Google or whatever. Let's find out why pirates say it. Let's go on this journey together to learn. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I'm with you there. It's cool. It's a great experience.
It really is. Yeah. And we homeschool. And so, it's interesting because sometimes I feel like they're asking those questions because they think, you should know this. So I'm going to ask you to find out if you being an authority is something that I should consider, which I find to be hilarious. But, um, and so it's really important to go, I don't know the answer to that. Let's find out together. And you like go on these little rabbit hole adventures and find out. Man, one of the twins, Vegas, um, is he's fascinated by space, so he'll down, like, his tablet is half full of these simulators and stuff that you could say, well, if I made a solar system that had a sun that was this size, how would the planets react and all that other stuff. And so he'll come and he'll tell me, I've kind of started keeping track of them, but he'll tell me three facts, and then he'll tell me something that he makes up, right? And that's based on one of these simulations that he's done. And then he'll just kind of like sit back, and I can see the look on his face where he's like testing me to decide whether or not that makes logical sense. I go, wow, buddy, that's a very interesting concept, and we'll talk about it and everything. He goes, yeah, no, I made that one up. I just wanted to see what you thought about it, if it was if it was possible. I'm like, okay, bud, I don't get caught on it as much as I used to. Before I was like, wow, that's crazy, that's amazing. And he's like, that's not real. Yeah, it's good stuff, man. Being a dad is awesome. It's awesome. It is. It can be very difficult too, but
Hmm.
it's awesome, you know.
Yep. Well
You
worth
Just
it.
guys
from
have
doing a quick
you
Google
guys have
search to
plans for
answer
more kids?
Daniel's question. No.
No more kids?
Yeah, for us, we initially wanted two, like we are gonna stop at two.
Mm-hmm.
I make the joke that we when we found out we were pregnant with twins, God was like, "Oh, you meant two total, not two at
Uh,
once." um, but no, it's been like we never would have. I don't know if we would have had three kids if
mm-hmm.
it weren't for the twins. But having three kids has been like it's been fun. It's been great. So as of right now, like the plan is no more kids, but as life goes on, things like that can change.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're sticking with just the three that we have.
Mm-hmm. You know,
Mhm.
it's funny that you say that about the joke about the twins, because our twins came last in our lineup, right? So we had three daughters, and at one point we were having a discussion about, like, maybe we could try and see if we could have a boy and all that other stuff, and then she got pregnant, and over, like, we were pretty the three girls were pretty consistent, in their size and how much Carrie's belly grew and all of that stuff. Well, in the last pregnancy, I mean, it was like double. Everything was. So I asked our midwife how to do the what is it called, the fontanel measurement, where you measure from the belly button down, and you can get how many weeks pregnant they are. Just kind of like a pretty close estimate, right? And so I did this measurement, and she's like, "I think this is a terrible idea for you to do this to your, you never, like, you really want to measure your wife's belly when she's pregnant? This is crazy, right?" And I was like, "No, no, no. I think we're having twins. I really think." And she's like, it's very highly unlikely. And so we measure, and I was like, "Well, that's like 6 weeks older than they should be." And so I'm the whole time I'm like, "I know we're having twins. I know we're having twins." And Carrie's like, "No, I don't think we are. I think I would know," and all this other stuff. We go to the doctor um, to do a sonogram when we're at the point for that, and I tell the technician, "Hey, I think we're having twins," and he's like, "Oh yeah, there's probably two or three heartbeats in there. No, no, probably." He's making all these jokes about it, and he touches the wand to her belly and immediately takes it off, and he goes, "Okay, so," and he puts on his, like, "I'm a professional technician, no more jokes." So there is in fact two heartbeats like that, and I was like, "I knew it." Right? And then it hit me, "Oh my gosh,"
Oh,
and it turned out it was two boys. So, and they were they're called monochorian uh di I I don't know, some Latin word, but they're called monodi twins, right? So they're identical, but they had one sac and then had two separate placentas, so they were very high risk. So they were the only kids that we had without a midwife at home, um, and so we got to experience the whole hospital birth, which was great, for what it was. Especially when you have three kids home birth, you start to develop thoughts about hospital births and that kind of stuff. But I went from being like, "I knew it," to terrified,
mhm.
like, in a second, and so I could imagine if we would have had twins first, we probably only would have had twins. But we had the three singletons first, and so that kind of was like, well, we could have, like, my brother has 8 kids, and my other brother
Wow.
has four, and they're 8 and 9 years younger than me. So so yeah, our family is nothing if not prolific. So we'll be the Genghis Khan lineage of the future, I'm sure.
We've talked about
Yeah.
it a little bit, but like my wife's like, no, I'm good. She's very
Yeah.
career focused, which she works her butt
Uh-huh.
off, and so I get to be the stay at home, have fun dad. But We're
Nice.
good. I like DJ. They were trying to have just one more, and they were gifted with two, which was fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
more
Well,
kids the merrier.
it the longer you try for too, like what our doctor told us was the older the woman gets, the more likely that you could potentially have multiples, right? And so it's yeah, it's very interesting. Like I'm
Mhm.
sure if we tried again, we'd have quadruplets, you know, or octuplets or something. Then we'd have to change the branding. It couldn't be
Oh
Seven
gosh.
Kin anymore. We'd have to be something else. It'd be a big hassle, but but this is actually what's interesting is right now is the longest period of time that we haven't had a 2 year old. Um, because we kept having kids about 2 years apart, and so
Mm.
now we have the twins are let's see, they'll be 6, or no, they are 6. They'll be turning 7 in October. Um, and so we're now getting to go out and experience more things that we wouldn't have done with a 2 year old. Like going to a restaurant for the first time the other day, going to the movies. We had taken the older kids when they were about that age, but we've never gone as a whole family. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. I don't know that I would want to change that particular thing. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and they also say once you have multiples, the likelihood goes up that you'll have multiples again. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
to your point, we would go from 3 to like 6, or
Yeah.
yeah,
Just make yourself a football team. If you don't
yeah,
like
yeah.
football, basketball's okay too, right? So yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so I have a couple questions for you guys and your
Well,
experience, fathers, as well. Are you guys open to that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah.
So what
Uh-huh.
what um what have you found, like, I think what I'm trying to do here is compare, because I do things that I think are not normal, and so I want to talk to some other fathers to see if they do this kind of stuff too, and that's kind of what I was wondering about. So like I set these goals for things, um, pertaining to the children, like they should be, I should not, they should be something, but I should be able to do this with them by this point. Do you guys ever find yourself doing that kind of stuff? Like, like if they can't play catch with me by the time they're 5, then I've failed to have a catch with them enough. Like that would be kind of like an example of what I'm talking about. You guys ever run into anything like that?
Good.
Go ahead, Alec. Oh,
Oh, so something we had was with Micah, my son. He took forever to ride his bike. My daughter
Mhm.
picked up right away, and so with him, it took a long time. So like it did feel like okay, why the heck? It usually takes kids real quick to pick up a bike. He's very stubborn, so I don't know if it just
Mhm.
depends on the kid, but it took him a long time to do that. And then with my daughter, um, she's taking a lot longer, not a lot longer, but she's taking longer to get like reading by herself, because she's still struggling with some words. But I mean, they're still young. Um,
Mhm.
but I think as far as like thinking like I failed, I think so. What DJ's done has been really good with his kids is not controlling their emotions, but helping them figure out their emotions. Whereas
Mhm.
but it's a little bit backstory. I lost my job and I went through a very pretty dark phase for a minute. And with that was when they were a little bit younger, and so I wasn't like at that mental capacity with for myself to be there for them. And so I feel like I failed a little bit there. Like we're a little bit behind on that, like helping them figure out their emotions because I was in a bad place. Um, but yeah, that's where I felt like I've been.
Like where you've struggled to help them with that. Did I
Yeah,
did I
so I
lose
had
you
to
there?
figure out myself because I was in a really good spot in life. No, I think I've got a little leggy conviction on my end, so I think you guys are ahead of me.
Mm.
Um, on my end, I was really, really happy with my job. I was really happy in life, and then everything was taken away. Lost my job. We went through pretty financial hardship for a minute, and I honestly, like, I haven't really been in a point like that in my life before, and everything hit me really, 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 really hard. So I went to some really dark places, like mentally, and having to be that dad at home, stay at home dad, and figure out their emotions, but all at the same time trying to figure out my emotions. It just didn't go hand in hand for a minute, and I had to get on that track of trying to figure that out. So I feel like I failed there, helping them figure out their
Hmm.
emotions at a point where they needed it more than I did. Um,
Oh,
so
I totally experienced that. I get that. And how about you?
Yeah. I don't know if I feel like personally I failed, or more so just being conscious of comparing it to like other kids that have
Hmm.
hit, oh, like, they're supposed to be at this milestone by this age, and they're supposed to be at this milestone by this age. But I've just from so my wife, she's going to school for education, and actually we're going to be homeschooling our kids. So like she's learned about all the milestones, and she's learned, you know, just helped me to look at them and just, okay, well, sure, like he may be lagging here, but he's really advanced in this area.
Hmm.
And it's just really cool to put that in perspective. Like, okay, so we just have to help him out in this area, but like also, really saying like, wow, like what he's doing over here. Um, so I don't think I've necessarily fallen into saying like, but I've had my wife has helped me out with that too. So I think
Hmm.
I could have easily fallen into. I've definitely compared myself to other dads. Like, oh,
Yeah.
this dad's out here every day outside playing with his kids, and you know, I'm not outside every day playing with my kids. Like I've gotten to that kind of comparison.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Nice. Right on. Yeah, I really experienced a lot of difficulty when the two oldest girls were younger. Before we moved out here, actually. So like with our second born being 6 months old, and our first 2.5, and like I kind of fell apart. Like I honestly, I really didn't handle that period well, and I still kind of wonder, like, there must have been something there because Carrie stuck with me the whole time, but I was of no help during that first couple of years. I didn't know what to do. I had everything had changed all of a sudden, and I was also kind of the stay at home dad person. I had just gotten laid off and had all of this. Uh, I actually left a really good job the day before our first was born because I wasn't going to be allowed to have any time off, and uh, and that kind of like spiraled downwards after. So yeah, no, I had a really hard time during that first about 2 year period. I think I made up for it later, but I had a really hard time. I was wondering if you guys experience things like that too. So like all of the change and and whatnot. But yeah, that makes
yeah,
sense.
hmm yeah, yeah. I didn't. So I got diagnosed later in life with ADHD. I didn't know that I had ADHD, or that I had a problem with emotional regulation and all of that kind of stuff. And so when we
Hmm.
had our son, like it was super overwhelming. I felt like I couldn't handle his cries. I didn't know what was going on. I just felt like something wasn't clicking, and I just, and that whole period, the first 2 years of his life, it literally was like my wife doing majority of the heavy lifting.
Mm.
Um, but then it is crazy. Like it was like a 2 year mark, and then like once we had the twins, it was like a whole different ball game. Like I knew what was up. I knew what I needed to do. Like it's having that second kid, or second and third kid in our situation. But yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. I wonder if that's just something that happens to us all, because it's like, I don't know. It was uncanny how like my oldest turned 2 and everything clicked, And I think it was when I could start having small conversations with her, and she was talking, a little bit to me about this and that and the other thing. I was like, oh, that's you're a human. Ah, you're not this lump that I have to keep breathing for, like you're an actual person. Whoa. And now we're like best friends. And
Mhm.
she's 14, she'll still come, I love you, daddy, and give me big hugs and everything. But man, I was terrible the first 2 years. In subsequent children, I got a lot better, um, but even with the second born, it was about that 2 year mark. And then the third, we had a home birth, and I studied um, something called the Bradley method, which is the husband coached childbirth. And so, although we had a midwife there, I actually caught my third born, and and that was like we've just been super tight because of having that experience. And then with the boys, we they were super high risk, and the type of twins they were and everything. She ended up having a C-section, but I'm in the room while she's having the C-section. I've got my phone over the curtain, which they kept like pushing it out of the way, and I'm like, dude, you know, I'm I'm gonna watch this, and so I got to be a part of that experience and everything. So I did a lot better with the third and the twins. But yeah, I was terrible with the first two. Terrified, didn't trust myself, didn't think I'd be able to do anything successfully. Um, and, even if I did think something about something we were doing parenting wise, I would always defer to Carrie, because whatever she thought was probably right and I was probably wrong. Um, so it was an interesting experience. Yeah.
For sure. It's yeah, definitely um yeah, that someone just clicks and you're like, "Oh, this
Yeah.
isn't as hard as I thought it was.
Dad
We're all
life.
learning together."
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
all learning together. Like, your kids are learning as much as you're learning. It's all a new experience for everybody, and
Yeah.
I guess the faster you can come to that realization that nobody really like every human is different, and
Right.
so, what may have worked for other kids may not work for your kid, and like just being there in that moment and living that experience, because that's
Yeah.
just it. They're learning as much as you're learning, and that's
And you
that's
do the
it. I
best you
mean,
can. Yeah.
yeah,
And you do the
exactly,
best you can.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. You have any more questions?
I think those were the main ones. I
Okay.
I wanted to
Yeah.
just see if other people had as hard of a time as I did at the beginning.
Yes. The answer, yes, a resounding yes. So,
Yeah. All right. All
yeah.
right. All right. Oh.
Um,
That's
but yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's something kind of like we talk about, like, so we're trying to build a community of dads, just because
Hmm.
with our name, everyone's fatherhood journey is unscripted. Everyone's journey is a little different, and we can
Hmm.
all base off each other and kind of talk to each other to get that info. Like, hey, was this similar? And we can all help each other out. So that's why, like, the whole point of our podcast is doing that. So just you asking those questions is awesome.
Great. Yeah. I figured this would probably be a good place to get an answer to that. It's interesting in my situation, um, like getting having real conversation. I don't want to sound lame, but having real conversations with people about these sorts of things that aren't specifically intended to um, somebody else to get something from me is difficult to come by. And so I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
no problem.
So okay, so just could you, for any parents that want to start homesteading or are having the ideas of starting off grid living, what are three like starter tips you could give us?
So I kind of look back over the things when we were starting that I had the most trouble with, and I always start with those things. Is one, the most difficult thing that I experienced when we first started this lifestyle was changing the pace of life, like letting life slow down significantly. Like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, when you live in the city, or you have your your job, and there's bills and there's all this stress that you're trying to deal with, the pace of life is such that you can kind of outrun the feeling that you get from those things, right? I liken it to pushing a spring up against a wall. And the difficult thing was when I took my hand off the spring, it wanted to come and hit me in the head, right? And so I had a really hard time doing that. And as a result, I just started doing all these projects that didn't need to be done, that wasted time and wasted resources, and all of those sorts of things. So what I give as a solution to that is, because inevitably the other person there with you, whether you're the wife feeling that way or the husband feeling that way or whatever, um, is make sure you take the time to sit down and align your goals, and what it is that you're trying to accomplish with the person that you're doing this lifestyle with, um, and that'll help to kind of like externally regulate that pace, and it can slow down and you guys can enjoy stuff. um, I think the second thing in that line is, don't just immediately think that you know what you need to do next and then start on it. I I did that over and over and over again, and um, like where we built our first solar array, I didn't know where the sun was going to be in the winter, so I built this solar array, and it happened to be in the complete shade in the winter when the sun was lower in the sky. So we had no electricity during that period of time, right? So along with that, allowing the pace to slow down, you have to realize that this lifestyle is based on seasons and years off into the future. And you have to think in those terms rather than, what do I need to solve to make sure that everything is solved between now and my next paycheck, right? I think modern life gives us a very narrow viewpoint
Hmm.
of time, right? The Probably the biggest lesson that I've lived, um, or that I've learned living this way, is that you have to think into the next year and the next season minimally, or you will be constantly in a state of cope, trying to solve problems rather than just living your life, right? And I think that's what modern life is. It is a state of cope, right? You're just constantly coping with the problems that have been presented to you to keep you interested in playing the game that is modern life. Um, and It's not fun. And if you take that viewpoint into this lifestyle, you will not have fun with it. Um, and then third, I'd say get comfortable with failing, and making mistakes, and because you're gonna, and you're gonna, over and over and over again, and it's gonna be the most frustrating thing you've ever experienced in your life, unless you're like somebody who's been going to survival school your entire life and spent every summer becoming an Eagle Scout, or I don't, um, like, then you'll probably have some skills. But when we arrived out here, I couldn't even start a campfire. I had none of the skills necessary to live this way. And so I'm probably a very far extreme case of, you know, failing and learning and getting a little better, but then failing again and then learning and getting a little better. Um, but throughout that process, I've come to a point where I'm fairly certain I could survive anywhere for any period of time under any such, circumstances. Like, so realize that all of those failures, I tell people on our live stream, um, they go, how could you handle all of those failures? And how could you, every time I run into something that I can't do immediately, I just give up on it and move on to something else. I say, well, if you stay on one path, you are a finite number of failures away from more success in that subject than you could possibly imagine. It's a finite number of failures. It's so statistically improbable that you will continue to fail at something ad infinitum. It's basically impossible. And so you're a finite number of failures away from more success than you could ever imagine. We took that viewpoint in making videos, had 400 followers in October of last year. And right now we're sitting just below 650,000. And so, you know, and we had been making videos for 10 years prior to that. Literally dozens of people saw them. Uh, and so you just keep pushing in whatever direction it is that you want to get, that aligns with the purpose you're trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
And sooner or later, you'll get there. And you'll find that all the stuff you were running away from, it wasn't able to make the hike.
That's awesome. Yeah, solid advice. No matter which way no matter what life you're looking to live,
Yep.
it's slow everything down because you're right. We do run super fast and we don't deal with a whole lot of things
Right.
until it hits us, right? Where our body shuts down and says, "Hey, you haven't been dealing with this emotionally. Now it's affecting you physically. You're having a heart attack. You had a stroke." Like
Yeah.
that's what really takes people in today's society to stop and say, I should probably start appreciating more things in my life and start really, some people turn to yoga, some people turn, whatever it is to kind of center yourself and say, like, okay, I got to really pay attention to what my body is saying, what my emotions are saying. And then to your point too, like just keep on pushing because eventually, just eventually it will, as long as you're conscious and you're making the adjustments, eventually things will pan out the way you want it to,
Yeah.
um, the way your goals are. And so I think, yeah, it applies to everything. So, but yeah, I know we're going to wrap up here. But
Sweet.
I first and foremost want to say that I appreciate you coming on the podcast with us. I know you alluded to it was right when you got on that you've been super busy. So taking that time with us is super appreciative to me. Like I love it. As much as you probably learned from us, we've learned from you. And like, yeah, I just overtly appreciated that you were able to come on today. So,
Yeah. I appreciate you having me. I get asked to go on a lot of different things. And honestly, I ignore about 99% of it. But when whoever, I don't remember who wrote to me first, but it was like, oh, something about helping dads to yeah, I'm there. Let's do that. And I'm also really glad that we were able to reschedule to have all of us here at the same time. So that was
mhm.
great. Yeah. And I had a great time, and thank you guys so much for what you do. It's something that's really necessary. Being a dad is difficult, and there are so many books on what to expect not as a dad. And like what we don't know about being a dad could fill volumes, and I appreciate that you guys are trying to do something about that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. And hopefully we can have you on again. We can talk back and forth, keep communication there, and
Yeah.
just keep following your journey. And everyone that is listening to this, go follow his journey. TikTok, YouTube, Seven Kin Homestead. They have an amazing story. They have awesome videos. If you guys are looking into homesteading, this is the place to go check it out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Cool, cool. Well, thank you again, and we will. Everyone's listening. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Jason, we look forward to hearing from you again.
Yeah. Talk to you later, guys.
Bye.